Hello, Tennessean viewers and readers. This is David Plazas, the Opinion and Engagement Director. I have the pleasure of having with me Russ Pulley, council member and also a candidate for Metro Council at-Large for the 2023 municipal election on September 14th. And this is part of a series that we're doing with the candidates. Councilmember Pulley, how are you doing today?
Doing well, David. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about why you're running for this at-large seat.
Well, I've served in the district for 8 years, and that's a much different position. I view a district council member's role as primarily constituent related. You have to be available to your constituents so that when they call you about the many issues that come up from citizens where they would have a need for their council member, my primary responsibility was to be responsive to those needs. When they call me about, just some examples would be stormwater issues. My trash and recycling did not get picked up. We've got trees down blocking the road or hanging over our power line. We've got zoning matters, developers building next door to me and they're not complying with codes. We've got guys running an illegal restaurant right next door to us, and he's got big crowds over making noise. These are just some of the many examples of things people would call a district council member and expect him to respond. We also had a lot of proactive matters, overlays that are time consuming that we would put on certain areas of neighborhoods that neighbors wanted to join forces to acquire. And there were a lot of zoning matters, people who wanted to rezone, people who wanted to make adjustments, seek variances, and those require a significant amount of community engagement so that the community can be involved, and also keeping community members updated through meetings and other means on things that matter to them. That was sort of a primary responsibility of a district council member, also being proactive in projects in your district. And my district, getting capital stormwater projects approved and in place. We rebuilt Hillsborough High School, which was a significant project here. It's been a lot of time consumed in realigning the intersection at Crestmore and Glen Echo. Those are some of the examples of the many projects, and we get a transit center and whatever. So I know this is a long answer. It's to explain what a district council member does. And now that I'm termed out, I looked at the at-large position, which is completely different than a district position is, where district council members are counted on to handle the things that I just described to you. So the 5 at-large positions, I personally view them as more of a broad countywide approach where we do engage with constituents on matters that matter to their district, but the district council member is primary to that, and we look at more policy-based decisions and help district council members where we can engage. And to that end, part of the campaign for me, it's been a twofold, two big issues in the campaign for me, which are introducing myself to the rest of the city. People know me in my district, but they don't know me in the rest of the city. And then also equally as important is finding out what is important to people in other areas of the city. Because when I travel along the campaign, things are different up in Joelton and in North Nashville than they are in District 25. And gaining an understanding of that and what's important to other sections of the city and other demographics have been very important to me and educational. So I guess to button up the answer of why I want to do this, I'm looking forward to that challenge because I think that now being able to focus on more, broad policy-based issues is something I'd like the challenge of doing. And then, wait a minute, I think I just lost you.
No, I'm here. Thank you so much for answering that. I appreciate that. One of the things that I noticed in the questionnaire that you filled out for the Tennessean editorial board is your focus on public safety. You have a law enforcement background at the local, state, and federal level. And we are recording this on August 17th. Just a couple of days ago, the Metro Council had its final meeting of this council. And one of the huge pieces of legislation was the license plate readers that was extended. Would you talk a little bit about the issue of public safety and why that's such an important issue to you?
Well, I think public safety is an important issue to most everybody. We see public safety through a different lens, but with some of my colleagues, but public safety is very important because I think one of the, if not the main function of legislators is to keep our citizens safe. And nothing really hit home to me more than the Covenant shooting, which occurred in my district, and I became intimately involved in that. And keeping our children safe is another big priority in schools. But we see people get youth involved, which breaks my heart in some serious offenses. We see people getting aggravated assaults and homicides are up a bit. We're doing pretty well on some of the other crimes, trending down, but the serious crimes are not in a good place, in my opinion. So addressing those, I think, is very, very important. I have a background in that, so that gives me a perspective. It doesn't make everything I say gospel, but it does give me a perspective. So I do think that keeping our citizens safe is important, and it's worth community discussions about how we get there. I do think that policing is and should be different now than it was, 10, 20, 50, 30 years ago. And I think the police department has responded in a lot of ways to what community concerns are about policing and policing in the 21st century, which is different and it continues to evolve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting that you bring up that topic because I've had the opportunity to interview in the past leaders of the Community Oversight Board and also work with community groups when it comes to policing, because there seems to be multiple conversations. On the one hand, people want to be safe, and at the same time, they don't want to feel like they're over policed, and so that balance is
Right.
challenging. What do you hear from your constituents about is there a right balance, or is it very different from what you hear?
Well, I hear different things. My constituents in District 25, of course, they want a lot. They want a lot more than they're getting. But again, we in District 25 don't have the serious crime problem that other areas of the city have. And I also hear when I'm out on the campaign trail, like I have been for the last year, it's really interesting to hear the different perspectives. And what I try to do is put myself as much as I can in the shoes of the people who have perspectives I do not, so that I understand and try to feel where they are and why they feel that way. And as a policymaker, what I have to get to is, all right, what makes people feel that way? Is that if people are having a distrust for law enforcement, for example, what causes that distrust? Is it historical, or is it something that we're doing as a city? Is it something that the police department's doing? And I find that communication is a lot of the root of our issues worldwide and societally, and just even in everyday life with my family. It's like communication. We need to be able to. I need to somehow get out to you in words what it is that I intend to communicate to you about how I feel. And so working on community conversations, making sure that we have fact-based conversations, in debates like the LPR debate, I want fact-based conversations about things. And I want to hear from people. And I did hear from people. And I understand that people are very, very passionate about this issue. This is not just throwing out something that people who are opposed to LPRs, they have. I spoke with several people who were very emotional about their positions. And so that's not a vote I took lightly, because I understood there are other views, and I wanted to dig as deeply as I can into the issue to find out just what ultimately these issues are, why they are issues, and are we going to be doing anything by enacting this legislation that puts a lot of these things at risk. So I think it's important to hear from the community. It's important to hear from what people are, the people who are put in a marginalized category. People talk about marginalized people all the time. And, you know, when I look at black, brown, LGBTQ, and people in these communities, it's important for me to hear these voices, because I'm not in that community. So I need to hear these voices. I need to understand these concerns. And I think we need to understand these are real issues and real concerns as it relates to real people, and do what we can to understand and blend those perspectives into whatever policy decision we're making. And that's a tough needle to thread. And I think we're making strides. You talked about the Community Oversight Board. You know, there are people on both sides of that issue. And if I'm rambling, please feel free to stop me, because I know we have a time limit here. But, you know, I started bringing NOAA and the FOP together to have discussions about formulating a community advisory / oversight board before any legislation was ever presented. And then Scott Davis put his bill up in the middle of our discussions. And so that pretty much ended the meetings that we were having as a result of this. And then you know what transpired after that. So I'm not at all against the Community Oversight Board at all. I want to make sure that we have, I'd like to see the COB and the police department working in harmony with one another. And, I think those relationships have improved under Drake, but we still have an element of society that's distrustful of the police department. And I think the more we can have these community conversations and get police out there and understand what the police department's doing and understand what the community concerns are, and addressing them like we are with the partners in crime and things where we're putting mental health professionals together with police, and now sending mental health professionals alone. Those are steps that I think we're making, and those come from listening to community members and what's important to them.
One of these important things as well, and you mentioned this in your questionnaire, is the priority of affordable housing. Just to shift for one moment because of time, this is something that you're very passionate about as well. Would you talk a little bit about your initiatives and what you would like to accomplish over the next 4 years?
Sure. Affordable housing is definitely an important thing, as Nashville tends to get away from us in that arena. I think interest rates have made prices stabilize a little bit and come back, but that doesn't address the issue of affordability quite like we need to. So, we are doing things now that are helping in that arena. We've got, I believe, $50 million in the Barnes Fund, which we use to subsidize development projects so that we can create affordable housing stock. Another thing I found in my travels is there are members of the faith community working together with each other to create affordable housing stock by joining together with developers. And there's a program that a couple of the churches are using, one of which is in our district, that I'd like to see if there's any way we can enact this program on a greater scale by getting the government involved. Also, I looked deeply at this. We have a ton of surplus property that's just sitting around, and we're not really doing much with it. And, Mayor Cooper and I and another agency had lots of discussions about how we can use this property to develop for affordable housing stock and have many uses to the property in addition to putting affordable housing units on there. So I don't know that these are any more than small things to a bigger problem. When I spent many hours with my friend Bill Barnes before he passed away, he was a big proponent and really educated me a lot on the concept of inclusionary zoning, which I think is fantastic. We did run an inclusionary zoning bill in my first term that was preempted by the state. But we do have projects that are ongoing that have that concept, like Envision Casey and Envision Suticum Napier, where we're bringing different economic levels together and putting them in the same area, which I think is tremendously healthy. The challenge for us, quite frankly, is how do we do this on a larger scale? And, I can't tell you that I've got the silver bullet answer for that now, but I think it is important. And I think we do need to continue to focus on it, work on it.
One of the things I like to ask candidates is about the places they recommend to visitors. And among those, you included the Ryman, the Grand Ole Opry, and the Country Music Hall of Fame. So tell us, where are some of your favorite places to attend?
Oh, well, yes, I'm going to the Ryman Saturday night. The only thing I need to take with me at the Ryman when I go to concerts there is a nice, comfortable a cushion to sit on, because I can't sit on those wood benches for the entire concert, but I do have something they allow me to bring in. And so I go to the Ryman all the time for, I'm one of these old rockers. So Kansas is playing. I'm going to go see them. I hate that Messi's coming to town at the same time, but it looks like tickets are incredibly expensive for that. So I'm going to pass on trying to make that work, but love going to the hockey games. I'm a season ticket holder for the Predators. I used to be a season ticket holder with the Titans, and, I gave those up years ago because of conflicts on the weekend. I'm a season ticket holder at Broadway, so I go to TPAC a lot. So I spend a lot of time downtown, and when I go there, it's fun, it's enjoyable. And, I had a group of guys come into town 2 weeks ago and stay with me. And, we had a lot of work to accomplish, but we were out on the west side, and I recommended the Loveless Cafe to them, and they went out there and just loved it to death. And so anything that's unique to Nashville, I tend to recommend to people when they come to town, because we have so many options. Also, the Ascend Amphitheater. I just enjoy sitting out there at a concert, enjoying the music and looking out over the city and seeing the skyline and seeing what we've become. I do enjoy the many things. I think, we're at a point where we're continuing to grow, and we need to really keep an eye on that to make sure we do it responsibly. And so that's one of the things that's going to be important to the council moving forward.
Well, Russ, I want to thank you so much for your time today. If people want to learn more about your campaign, where can they go?
They can always hit me up, russpulley@gmail.com. 615-308-4972 is my cell phone number. And I've got a website. It's russpulley@large.com. So feel free to go there, and just thank you so much for giving us the forum to try to allow people as best they can to get to know us.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Pulley. Remember, to the viewers and the voters, early voting starts on August 25th and goes through September 9th, and the election is September 14th. Let's go out and vote, Nashville.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your opportunity here.